Doc Slab Audio on music production and audio engineering. Welcome to Doc Slab Audio and our 6th Master Series. I do believe this is the 5th video in our 6th Master Series session templates. And in this video, we want to talk about a mastering template. So first and foremost, you really have to get it in your head that mastering is the art of formatting. So you really have to understand that you have a master wave file with a really high bit depth and sample rate, and you're trying to make a cheap photocopy of that, say an MP3, that sounds as close as possible to that Rembrandt. It's that simple. So really keep that in mind. If you do a really good job as a mix engineer, you probably don't need to do any sweetening of your mix down. Although sometimes in the formatting process, when you do a mix down, even a high sample rate and high bit depth, it might change the sound a little bit. So you're going to want to drag it into a session and see if you can enhance it and make that mix down sound better. So because that is something you should do, no doubt about it. So with that in mind, that in the About section on the tab, the About section on my channel, there's a downloadable notebook that has a mastering process section in it. And there's a series on my first master series about mastering. I'm not going to get in it too deeply. It can get a little complicated, and the biggest thing you'll find is that it's just very tedious work. You really want to be able to hear what's going on really well. You want to really know how to have your analysis tools set up so they're readily available and set out so you can look for issues and problems while you're listening acutely and have a really comfortable place to do it, because it's tedious work. Now, in my DAW, I have a mastering suite. There's an actually mastering suite in my DAW, and you can do this in RX. You can do this with some isotope suites. You can do this in a lot of other programs, and it's nice to have a separate thing set up for mastering. The biggest thing you're going to find out is you really want to understand what mastering is, study about it, and master it. And there's really no, your setup, having a template set up, it's going to boil more down to just having some good FX chains and some good presets and knowing how to use them when you're mastering, and having your analysis tools ready and available, and you have a really good listening environment to listen to what's going on. And in my humble opinion, it's that simple. So now, one thing I want to say is that you want to have a mastering suite, mastering template, either a session or a separate mastering suite, and a comparison session set up, so that once you go through and you take that mix down and you sweeten it up to where you've checked for any anomalies, you made it sound even better as far as you can tell, and you do a mix down of that and make a master wave file of that, at that point, you want to start doing some formatting. So you're going to want to have a comparison template set up that's pretty simple, that you have some places to put some reference tracks, your master wave file, maybe your mix down file in there also, and some tracks that you have formatted, like MP3 or whatever. And you're going to want to have some kind of bus with analysis tools on it, so that as you A/B back and forth and you're listening for things, you can look for issues in any of the in any area of the audio and be able to visualize it possibly. Sometimes it's very hard, unless you're in something like MATLAB, to really visualize differences and see differences, because it's not doing, the software isn't getting that deep, okay, is the only way to put it. Now, if I put it in MATLAB, I'll be able to spot the differences immediately. Does that make sense? In a DAW, it's questionable you're going to see it. So you're going to really want to trust your ears and learn that. Does that make sense? Now, do not dissuade you from buying MATLAB, because it can really help you with mastering, seeing what's going on there. You know, seeing the samples themselves, the bits, the bit depths, you being able to have, you know, really nice, you know, analysis tools that are made for doing scientific work, that you can see stuff down to a gnat's butt. Does that make sense? So I don't dissuade you from that, but it can get a little complicated. Does that make sense? There's no doubt. You have to trust me on that, but I don't dissuade you from getting into it. So basically, it's a pretty simple setup, and you will find that, in my humble opinion, as you get going through there, the biggest thing you're going to run into is I've got like a high-low cut EQ on here after I've got the master wave file in there, when I start formatting, because it sometimes causes some anomalies in the lower upper end, and even odd harmonics can be added with like trash 2 or something, working with equal loudness contour, boost and subtract EQ, stereo enhancement, and sometimes a little bit of reverberation. We'll let it reverberate a little bit, even just lightly during the formatting process. Dither, or adding noise through a gating system like noise, shaping, EQs, high-low ass filter, and a gate. And then maximizing it, you want to, you know, push it the limit a little bit, and a high cut, low cut EQ on after that, hitting a limiter to make sure you didn't get nothing clipping, and, you know, format. So, but basically you have this file clean, you want to format it, you want to drag it in here and say, okay, start A-Bing back and forth, what's the differences? And then you start adding stuff onto this MP3, going, okay, what's it missing? It sounds like the high end's a little hissy, so I'll kick down the high end a little bit, maybe kick the low end just a little bit up. I add some dither, you know, because there are tools you can actually add dither with, like isotope tools and things like that. And you start adding stuff to this MP3 until it sounds as close to this as possible, messing with EQ, whatever all you have to do, until it sounds close as possible. And then you got to go back to this master wave, put those tools that you had on here on this master wave, and then format it with those changes on there. And then hopefully that takes care of the problem. But I don't want to get into it too deep. It can get a little more complicated than that. But the session itself and the template, a template separate for making your master wave file from your mix down, so you can go back and open it up and go, what did I do to that mix down to make it this master wave file? Oh yeah, and then there it was great to go. So it's a separate place that you can always go back and look at and have your mix down and your master wave in there, you know, for changes or whatever during the master. You can go back to it anytime, right? And a separate comparison template that you can do this in, so that you can start trying to work on formatting. Does that make sense? And it's great in here. The only thing you have to keep in mind is when you drag this MP3 in here, that it's going to format it back to the same bit rate and sample depth, their sample rate and bit depth as this master wave file. So it's going to change the sound a little bit, but you will still be able to hear the differences. Okay, I mean, you will. If there's major issues that you need to work on, you will hear it. Does that make sense? So you don't have to worry about that too much. It would be better if there were separate things that you could play the MP3 through and check it against the mastering file, which there are tools to do that also. But I don't think you really need to worry about it that much. You get it in here and you get this MP3 sound as close as you can to this master wave file, you're probably okay. It's probably good sounding, is about as good as it's gonna get, okay? I mean, I know that sounds funny, but it's probably true. So that's basically what you need to work on. So the first thing is really learning about mastering and how to do it, and then setting up a couple of those sessions that are templates for mastering and for comparison that have really comfortable environments for you, because you're just going to be spending a lot of time A-Bing back and forth and then checking to see, maybe if I add a little bit of low end here to this MP3, does that make it sound better and more like the master, A-Bing back and forth, and add some dither to it or some noise. I mean, you'd be surprised. Sometimes I'll be like, oh, I added some brown noise and some blue noise together, and now it sounds great. It sounds really close to that. I mean, it sounds funny, but a lot of times the way the industry is, the dithering algorithms do a fine job, but the more nitpicky you get and the more of an audiophile you get, you'll find that you start picking apart every little sound. You got your headphones on, you're like tau, tau, sow. You know, it's like, I mean, you just get tuned in, bro, and you'll just pick it apart, you know. But in reality, I mean, I can put this in here and put it in my mastering suite and just format it to MP3, and it actually sounds pretty good. If I did a really good job on my master wave and I just format it without hardly doing nothing to it, it normally comes out sounding pretty good, unless the master wave had problems, right? I mean, that's just, it's true. The algorithms are pretty good. But being that we're audio engineers, if you want to be a good audio engineer, you're going to learn to be a mastering engineer, which means you're probably not going to trust nobody, and you're going to trust your ears the way you hear it and the way you want it done. That's why there's so many of them, because Bob is going to do it a little bit different. He's got a whole mastering studio just for mastering. You know, if everybody thought they could just put it in their DAW and then push MP3, produce one MP3, and that would be good, then he wouldn't have a job. So, well, he obviously does have a job, so that must mean he's doing something else, right? That means he's using his opinion of what needs to change to make it sound as good as possible, which they're paying for. So that means, there you go. So anyway, I hope that helps, because setting up a mastering session and a comparison session to work on your mastering abilities is important, but the template itself and how they're laid out isn't that critical. Is more that being a comfortable environment that you can really A/B things back and forth. And you know, you're looking at in your mastering sessions, it's like taking this file and making it better than the mix down as best you can. That's it, right? And then when you start formatting, that you have a place, you know, a comparison template to where you can drag that in there, format it, and start comparing it back and forth and working on your formatting mastering abilities. So it's that simple. And I don't dissuade you from buying something like MATLAB so you can see what it's doing. You can open up MATLAB in a couple different, you know, and look at a master wave file in MP3, and you will immediately see the differences. You can see the difference on the analysis tools. You can see the differences in the digital data that it represents, and it'll show you. And it's kind of cool, and you'll learn a lot from it. But you know, there's only so much you can do. You can't really replace those bits or that bit depth or any of that stuff. So you're basically, it's like you're trying to, you know, how do I say, it's like you're trying to fill in these gaps. You're trying to do things that basically trick the algorithm into thinking that it hasn't been truncated and tore up and made a crappy photocopy of your Rembrandt, which there's a lot of people that just spend a lot of time learning how to do that and mastering the art form of that, trying to trick you into thinking that, you know, that it hasn't happened. And some of them do a pretty good job, bro. So don't dissuade you from learning that. The more you learn about mastering, the more you'll understand about what's actually happening in audio and what actually is, you know, what is represented by this waveform or this waveform, which is going to make you a better engineer. So I certainly hope that helped. That's my advice as far as the template there. And that way you can save both of those. And then you basically have 4 templates throughout a production to go back and look at any phase of the production of what you were doing to help you remember things, help you fine tune yourself as an engineer, and to help you, you know, fine tune your FX change, your presets, your workflow, how you go about it, your templates themselves, how you work through a production to really help you in those areas. So I certainly hope this next master series really helped you a lot. And I'm going to try to put some templates on the channel in the About tab for you to download as Studio One templates or generic templates that'll open up in any DAW from the studio, and that you can download and open up in whatever DAW you're working in. So peace, hope, love. I certainly hope that helps, and I hope that helps you getting yourself a mastering template set up, FX chains and presets, and work on the workflow and a comparison template so that you've got tons of stuff to work through your whole different production, and you're not cluttered and it's not messy, and you've got separate areas for all these things that you can save for reference and things like that, and to go back and remember what you might have done, and to help you grow as an engineer in a cleaner environment with separate places to do the things you do. Peace, hope, love. I certainly hope you enjoyed this next video, and I will see you in the next one.